Little Red Riding Hood. Once upon a time there lived in a certain village a little country girl, the prettiest creature who was ever seen. Her mother was excessively fond of her, and her grandmother doted on her still more. The good woman had a little Red Riding Hood made for her. It suited the girl so extremely well that everyone called her Little Red Riding Hood. One day her mother, having made some cakes, said to her, "Go, my dear, and see how your grandmother is doing, for I hear she is very ill. Take her a cake and this little pot of butter." Little Red Riding Hood set out immediately to go to her grandmother, who lived in another village. As she was going through the wood, she met with a wolf, who had a very great mind to eat her up, but he dare not, because of some woodcutters working in a nearby forest. He asked her where she was going. The poor child, who did not know how dangerous it was to talk to a wolf, said to him, "I am going to see my grandmother, and carry her a cake and a little pot of butter for my mother." "Does she live far off?" said the wolf. "Oh, I say," answered the Little Red Riding Hood, "it is beyond that mill you see there, and the first house on the left." "Well," said the wolf, "and I'll go and see her too. I'll go this way and you go that way, and we shall see who gets there first." The wolf ran as fast as he could, taking the shortest path, and the little girl took the roundabout way, entertaining herself by gathering nuts, running after butterflies, and gathering bouquets of little flowers. It was not long before the wolf arrived at the old woman's house. He knocked at the door. Tap, tap, tap. "Who's there?" "Your grandchild, Little Red Riding Hood," replied the wolf, counterfeiting her voice, "who has brought you a cake and a little pot of butter sent by mother." The good grandmother, who was in bed, because she was somewhat ill, cried out, "Pull the string and the latch will open." The wolf pulled the string and the door opened, and then he immediately fell upon the good woman and ate her in a moment, for it had been the 3 days since he had eaten. He then shut the door and got into grandmother's bed, expecting Little Red Riding Hood, who came some time afterwards and knocked on the door. Tap, tap, tap. "Who's there?" Little Red Riding Hood, hearing the big voice of the wolf, was afraid at first, but believing her grandmother had a cold and was hoarse, answered, "It is your grandchild, Little Red Riding Hood, who has brought you a cake and a little pot of butter mother sends you." The wolf cried out to her, softening his voice as much as he could, "Pull the string, my dear, and the latch will go up." Little Red Riding Hood pulled the string, and the door opened. The wolf, seeing her come in, said to her, hiding himself under the bedclothes, "Put the cake and the little pot of butter upon the stool, and come sit on the bed next to me." Little Red Riding Hood sat on the bed. She was greatly amazed to see how her grandmother looked in her night clothes. She said to her, "Grandmother, what big arms you have! All the better to hug you with, my dear." "But, grandmother, what big legs you have! All the better to run with, my child." But, grandmother, what big ears you have! All the better to hear you with, my child." But, grandmother, what big eyes you have! All the better to see you with, my child." "Grandmother, what big teeth you've got! All the better to eat you up with, my child." And saying these words, the wicked wolf fell upon Little Red Riding Hood and ate her all up. The end.